Hey yo, what's good y'all, it's Stinger, or as they like to call me, D-Class member 004368. And today I'm going to be showing each and every one of you how you can make accents and phrases using the reverse render method. Now, you've likely never heard of the reverse render method because it's a term that I've dubbed myself. But this is the method that I use to make nearly all of my accents and phrases. So if you're interested in phrases, stay tuned through the whole video. But yeah, without any further ado, let's get started. So before we get into the actual crafting of the phrases, I want to show you some phrases that I've made using the methods I'm going to be showing you today, just so you can get a gauge for what your final product is going to sound like. And the phrases that I'm going to be showing you are from my Illusion phrase bank. And the kit contains 20 phrases, which are completely free. And if you want to grab it, it's in the description below. But that's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about how to make these phrases. So yeah, with that being said, this is what these phrases sound like. So yeah, as you can see, with the methods that we're going to be using today, we're going to get some really creative and unique sounding phrases. But yeah, now let's get into how to actually make the phrases. And the first thing that we're going to need to do is make the melody for the phrase, which in my opinion is the easiest part. Now, there's one VST in particular that I like to use when it comes to making phrases, and that is Analog Lab 5. But the initial sounds that you choose to make the melody aren't extremely important. So if you don't have Analog Lab, or you don't have really expensive VSTs like Omnisphere or anything like that, you'll still be good. You'll still be able to make high quality phrases. But for this example, I'm going to be using Analog Lab. And for these phrases, I like to either use ambient pads or keys. So I'm just going to grab a pad from my Wicked Analog Lab bank. I think I'm going to use the Greenville pad. And now let's take it over to the piano roll. Now, here you're going to craft a very simple chord progression. For these dark and sinister type of phrases, I like to use one chord progression in particular. That's going to be a standard minor chord to a minor second chord progression. And I'll show you how easy it is to craft one of these. Now, all we're going to do is we're going to lay out a basic minor chord. I'll just do C minor, which is C, D sharp, G. And then I'm going to extend it so that it's 2 bars long. And then to make the minor second, we're going to copy this over, take our D sharp or the second note in our chord and put it down by 1 semitone. And boom, there you have a minor to minor second chord progression. Super dark, super sinister, and super simple. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the root note of this chord, which is C, and copy it down by an octave. So now we have the chord progression for our melody. But this in itself is not going to be enough, which is why the next step is going to be arpeggiation. And this yet again is a super simple process. We're going to hit Control A to highlight everything in our piano roll, and then we're going to hit Alt A to bring up the arpeggiator. And now in here you can tweak the settings to make whatever you want. But for this method that I'm going to show you, I typically like to use slower arpeggiations. And then you can play around with these settings as well until you get something that you like. So here's what we have right now. Super simple, nothing that we're going to use as a standalone melody, but it's a good basis for what we're going for. Now I'm going to copy this over so that it's 8 bars long. And then this is where our reverse render method comes into play. The first step of this is going to be highlighting our entire piano roll using Control A and reversing it using Alt Y. Now we're going to have it flip horizontally and make sure preserve start times is off. We're going to hit accept, and then now we're going to do the next step, which is rendering. So we're going to drag our pattern into the playlist, duplicate it so that it's 16 bars long. We're going to highlight both of the patterns and hit Control Alt C. This brings up the consolidation panel, which renders our selection, and we're going to make sure the tail is on cut remainder. And then now we're just going to render it. Now for the next step with this method, we're going to double click on our pattern and hit reverse. Now you may think it's counterintuitive to reverse the piano MIDI, render it, and then reverse it again. But what we're doing here is we're maintaining our original melody while still getting that signature reverse style sound. All right, next we're going to chop out these last 8 bars, and then we're going to play around with the pitch until we find something that we like. All right, so I think I like how it sounds 300 cents up. We're at D sharp minor now. So now that we've got our rendered and reversed melody, let's get into effects. The first effect that I'm throwing down is going to be reverb. Now I'm using FabFilter Pro R, but you can really use any reverb. Now the next 2 effects that we're going to throw down are damn near crucial. The first is going to be Portal by Output. Now there's a couple alternatives to the effect that we're getting today, and these are going to be Crystallizer as well as any kind of shimmer or crystal reverb. But I like to use Portal just because of its vast array of presets. So all we're going to do is we're going to grab a crystal preset from Portal. Now I'm going to go into to my Dimensions portal bank, which is completely free. You can grab it in the description if you so please. And I'm just gonna find a preset that fits our melody. So I think I like how it sounds with this preset on. Alright, the next extremely crucial effect that we're going to be throwing down is Shaperbox. Now, an alternative to Shaperbox is going to be gross beat, but with Shaperbox, there is so much more that you can do in terms of effects. Now, when I load up Shaperbox, I'm going to click on one of these shapers. Typically for phrases, I like to use time, drive, filter, or the volume shapers. So I'm just going to click on the filter one. Now from here, we're going to navigate down here to the presets. And we're just going to click on some presets until we find something that we like. Okay, I really like how this filter preset sounds. And then we can play around with some different parameters like the resonance, the cutoff, and the smoothing. And then you could add in additional shapers as well if you so please. But I think I like how this sounds just with the filter shaper. But the same thing applies to all the other shapers. Like if you wanted to do the time shaper, click on it and scroll through the presets. Alright, so Portal and Shaperbox are the two main effects that we're going to need. But I'm just throwing down a couple other things like an EQ to take out the low ends, as well as Soothe 2 to tame any resonant frequencies. Now I'm going to play around with the pitch a little bit more to see if I find a different pitch that sounds better. But that's pretty much all you need to make these types of phrases. Alright, so I played around with the pitch a little bit more to see if it would sound better in a different scale, and I landed on having it 500 cents up or at F minor. Now, with that being said, this is what our final product sounds like. Now, what I've covered today is pretty much just the essentials for making these types of phrases. But there are tons of other things that you could do to make these more unique, like adding other creative effects like distortion, filters, phasers, vocoders, all that kind of stuff, as well as playing around with different arpeggio speeds and adjusting the speed of your pattern as well. So yeah, what I've shown you today is a step-by-step process, but don't be afraid to add things in between the steps or change some of the steps. But yeah, with that being said, that's going to pretty much cover how to make accents and phrases in FL Studio using the reverse render method. I thoroughly hope you enjoyed today's tutorial. If you have any questions, please feel free to throw them in the comments down below and I will do my best to answer them. Also consider checking out my Patreon where I post the FLPs to all of my beats in all of my videos. As well as that, you also get access to one of my sound kits per month. And finally, consider subscribing as I post one tutorial a week and anywhere from 1 to 2 sound kits a month. Other than that, it's going to be it. Peace.